Welcome into Vandy on SI. I'm Joey Dwyer. Four-star guard Ant Brown is a Vanderbilt Commodore, the number 70 player in the class by 24/7 Sports, the number 49 player by ESPN, is a Vanderbilt Commodore. And I think that in itself, before we get into Ant Brown specifically, that's a big deal. Mark Byington and company a month ago really hadn't hit on all that many high school recruits. Now have easily got a top 10 class and have two guys in Mbako and Brown, who I think could be real difference makers for multiple years. Jackson Sheffield, too, they really like. Probably not as much of a volume scorer, but to get two guys of this pedigree who have proven it on the UIBL circuit and three top 100 guys overall, I mean, that's a huge deal for this program. And I always thought they had the financials to be able to get guys like this ever since Byington came. Obviously, in the late Stackhouse era, they didn't have the NIL and things like that they needed to be able to do these things. But last year they had the top offer on a few high school guys that were obviously important players for them to get, and they didn't get them because they didn't have proof of concept. They didn't have the pedigree that they've had. Now they've got already an NBA player under their belt in Chris Magnon. They have an NCAA tournament under their belt. And they have a pitch that I think guys are starting to buy a little bit more. And I don't think it's as much Ethan Mbako and Ant Brown buying into this as there's something to buy into. And I think that's the big deal for Vanderbilt basketball at this point. It would be one of their better classes in program history if it ended today. And I don't know that that's gotten enough credit. I think that's a huge deal that they have a top 10 class pretty easily, and they could keep building on it. They've had all types of visitors. I think they've done a really nice job fostering relationships. And even then, like, the money is following those things, and they're starting to see wins like they kind of envisioned. They're beating Maryland for Ant Brown. They're beating Indiana for Ant Brown. He went on like 8 visits to Power 5 schools, all of which I would have counted Vanderbilt out against probably 3 years ago. And that's not a detriment to Stackhouse as much as it is a detriment to how they were resourced and things along those lines. Now they're starting to get these guys. And I think that's a big deal where Byington really had to build this thing through the portal every year and kind of reset the roster. And we'll see how much they can retain after this year. They're going to have some guys go. But I just look at this class and say, man, like, they are really putting something together here that indicates what they have. Ant Brown, I think, a player that maybe is even a little bit underrated in the grand scheme of things. He's going to have to prove some things, and we'll get into some of the deficiencies or at least things he'll have to improve on before he sees a significant jump. But, man, Ant Brown is the word I used to describe in my breakdown is just so dynamic. I mean, that's the word of the day, I think, with Ant Brown. And I don't say that about a whole lot of high schoolers. Even I think the 18 points on the UIBL circuit might be a little misleading here because Ant Brown has the ability to take over a game and go well beyond that. He had 37 points in a game on the circuit, and I think it was a close game that they won. That's a big deal in itself, and just so explosive. I think he's twitchy, can really score at all 3 levels. He's the type of guard that at some point, maybe when he's older, maybe not as a freshman, you can hand the keys to a game to him and say, go win us the game, go get a bucket. Vanderbilt had that with Jason Edwards last year. It had real tough shot making ability, and I wonder if it could have that again with Ant Brown. The thing now, can Vanderbilt kind of hone Ant Brown's game in? And they don't want to box him in, right? That's kind of Mark Byington's calling card at this point. They don't want him to feel boxed in or be boxed into doing anything, but 3.5 turnovers a game on the UIBL circuit, shot 40% from the field, 30% from 3. It's how are you kind of meshing that fearlessness that he has with making him in the fearlessness and the dynamic elements of his game? How do you fit that within your scheme? It seems like Ant Brown is a good fit for what Mark Byington wants to do specifically, and that way too, I look at his skill set as one of a lead guard who can really score it. And I think he's a scoring guard before he's a lead guard. I think the tape and the stats would evidence that to you. But for all the talk that we've had about Ant Brown being just such a dynamic scorer, he averaged dang near 5 assists on the UIBL circuit as the lead guard, and obviously had the ball in his hands a lot and made some bad decisions, right? 3.5 turnovers says something. He's still averaging almost an assist and a half more per game than he is a turnover. So I think that's a big deal too. Ant Brown, I think, is just such a, first of all, dynamic scorer, second of all, dynamic distributor, And I think that helps in Vanderbilt's scheme where they're going to play 2 point guards, or at least ideally Mark Byington's going to play 2 point guards. I think that's how he wants to play. And maybe they didn't have the chance to do that as much last year as they do now. But I look at him and say he could bring it up and initiate offense and play out of ball screens that way. Or he can slide over to the 2 where you're still kind of using that skill set, but Byington's really going to encourage him to score and, again, tap into the dynamic elements of his skill set. The handle is really something that stands out to me. It's just so confident with the ball in his hands. He's confident in putting it on the floor, and I think he can really get to his spots. And even when he doesn't, I think he has tremendous tough shot-making ability. I wrote that it's kind of on the same level as Jason Edwards, and Jason Edwards is one of the better ones I've seen at doing that. And I don't know that Vanderbilt fans love that at all times, and I think they'll have to get used to it at times with Ant Brown too, but man, he can make them, and I think that's a big deal in the grand scheme of things as well. Also, you just feel like he plays a little bit bigger than 6'1". I think he really wants to defend. I think that's something that appears to be important to him. I don't know that he's an excellent defender. It doesn't appear to me like he'll be a complete liability on that end. I don't think he's going to switch or be a great isolation defender or be a steal machine like Frankie Collins was last year at TCU before the injury. I just think he's serviceable there, though, at least enough to give you a chance to win with him on the court at the end of the game rather than having to pull him like they did Jason Edwards at times last year. We'll see kind of how it all plays out. I'm not entirely discouraged by him as a defender at this point, though. I think probably the biggest thing for me to see at this stage is he wants it, and he's always going to be confined by the size a little bit, but I think he wants to defend. I think that's important to him. And I think that matters too. Again, the big thing for him, and I read this in an evaluation, I think, on 24/7 Sports, and I had kind of had this thought as well. Like, I think the biggest thing for him is kind of what Karis Blau failed to do at Vanderbilt, which was play within the scheme and tap into the things that make you a special player, the tough shot making, the aggressiveness, the fearlessness, while still doing it alongside other good players. Ant Brown has kind of had an unlimited leash to this point, and it's not to say he hasn't played with good players or can't play with good players, but I think it's just different when you get to college, and I wonder how that transition is. I think that's going to be the thing that determines how much he gets on the floor right away, but man, this is an exciting commitment for Vanderbilt basketball. One of the, I think, top 20 or 30 scorers on the UIBL circuit, 18 points per game. Ethan Mbaka was 7th with 20, so I would assume that he's not all that far behind, but man, a really dynamic player for Vanderbilt basketball. And I think the way they got him says something too, where they were able to throw out a significant offer, and I think that matters as well. So, man, Vanderbilt basketball, another big get with Ant Brown, and a heck of a class it's putting together right now. Ant Brown, guy with serious upside, paired with 2 other guys with serious upside as well. So Vanderbilt basketball keeps rolling on the recruiting trail. We'll have more coverage of it over the next couple of weeks. But for now, Joey Dwyer, thank you guys for watching. God bless. We'll talk soon. Peace.